Welcome everyone to the show. Thank you so much for joining me as always. I'm grateful for you really every single time. So thank you for tuning in. Now, today is quite interesting because as I sit down right now, I have no idea what we're going to talk about. I really don't. And it's not for lack of preparation or lack of thought. I actually was not going to record a podcast today. And Spirit kept following me around. My guides were following me around. And for the last 2 days, actually, they've been following me around saying, go sit down, do a podcast. And I'm like, well, I don't have time right now. I've got this going on, all the reasons why I can't. And then finally, there is this pocket of time. And I'm like, well, what are we talking about? I don't know what we're talking about. And they said, this is where we need you to lean into the experience and just show up. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And so here I am. So literally, I don't know what we're going to talk about. However, when Spirit brings me to a position of surrender, I always know that there is something significant. And so what I'm going to do with today will be like an extended version of what I do on Wednesdays. So if you only listen to the podcast and you haven't checked out my YouTube page, which is Ginette Biro Medium, if you haven't checked out my YouTube page, every Wednesday I post it's called Wednesday Wisdom with Spirit, where I tune in either through mediumship or channeling and bring through a message. So Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, I use cards as the modality for that because those are great for general messages. But every Wednesday is reserved just for channeling or mediumship. Now, that same sort of idea is what we're going to do here today, but being that it's the podcast, this is like an extended message. And so it may be a mix of mediumship and channeling. It may just be a solid channel. I have no idea. So all I know is that my guides requested that I show up and sit down and press record. And so here I am. So I'm excited to do this with you all. So I'm going to just take a moment and I'm not going to edit it out, but I'm just going to take a moment where I'm quiet, I'm tuning in, and then we're going to get into the energy. And so what I would do is I would encourage you all, if you're able, obviously, if you're driving, maybe don't close your eyes, but if you're able, close your eyes and tune into this energy with me. Because what happens is this is going to create a deeper resonance for you for the parts of the message that are yours, that align with your journey. So let's just take a moment here to tune in, and then I am just going to roll with it. So for those of you that have never had a mediumship reading or have heard or seen channeling, you will be able to see what this looks like if you're on YouTube watching this. Or if you're listening, you'll just get a vibe into what a reading is like and how it kind of rolls. For me, at least, anyways, because every medium works different. So I'm going to dive in here. So just hold on one moment. Okay, so they are very quick here. Okay, fair. So they're saying they want to come through with a bit of a channel first, and then it will switch into mediumship so they can give me more clarity and visuals. So this is coming through from my guides, the 3 guides of the light. They are guides that I have been channeling since 2020, kind of since COVID started. They came in, they are light consciousness. I have brought through many messages from them on the podcast, but they would like to come through direct now. So I'm just going to let that happen. We are the 3 guides of the light, and we are grateful to come through to speak with you all today. We wish to speak of convergence and alignment. In the experience of things converging into alignment can often create a feeling of instability, a feeling of an inability to feel into what is coming because the path is not laid clear. Many of you are used to living on a singular timeline, yet now the consciousness is such that we are moving into multiple timelines merging. Now, many of these merge in a complete overlap, whereas others may merge simultaneously side by side, meaning they are connected but not completely overlapping. It is not important to understand exactly why or how, but rather to understand what is happening. overall. We bring this through because many of you are raising your consciousness as such right now at such unprecedented rates that the reality that you understand is shifting. You have moments, many of you, where you're questioning your own sanity. You're questioning your perception of time. You're questioning your perception of reality. You're questioning how you show up in the world right now because, again, what used to be linear and somewhat predictable is changing. You're moving into an understanding of reality that is non-linear, a reality that has a curve, a bend, an ebb, a flow, up, a down, forward, and back, all at the same time. This is hard for the human brain to understand as it likes its linear nature. You were born into a frequency that had linear nature, but now through the ascension of the collective, this linear nature is shifting into curvilinear, expressive nature, which in essence is unlimited. Your access into this ability is in ways that you embody your true nature. The true nature of your embodiment comes back to your capacity to bring in compassion for self first. Many of you miss the mark. Many of you look outside of you for compassion, a compassion you're really wishing to have from within. Many of you also look outside of you for guidance, but yet you also have an internal guidance system that is loud. And it is not to say one is better than the other. What is required is wholeness, meaning outside and inside. For those of you that have not looked inside yet for love of self and compassion of self, you will notice a continual feeling of lack. Just like those of you who have not looked inside for your own personal guidance, you will notice a feeling of lack. If you spend all your time looking outside, you miss the other half. Just the same goes for many of you. We have been seeing you doing deep, beautiful journeys. But what happens is in your deep, beautiful journey, you're actually missing external aspects that can help you. This is important. Okay, they just dropped the energy right there. Why did they drop it just at that? Okay, interesting. So they're bringing in, so when the three guides of the light come through, there's usually kind of one dominant energy. They're shifting energies now, so I'm just going to go back into it. This one has a much younger, more feminine nature. Usually the three guides of the light show up very neutral, not gender specific. This one has a very feminine energy to it. Oh, I see. Okay, so this is where it shifts into more of a mediumship message. So this aspect isn't going to channel through, but they're going to give me the information. So following what they began with, the outside versus the inside, the compassion and stuff, they're now saying one of the key pieces to moving either outward, to reach out to others for assistance, for information, for guidance, or to reach inward requires a softness in self. And this softness in self happens when we are willing to either admit a vulnerability, a fragility, step face to face with forgiveness. Something like that is needed in order to move in the direction that we're not most comfortable with. Because usually people feel very comfortable either turning inwards but not reaching out for help or asking for help, whereas others feel great asking for help but they don't want to turn inwards and feel what they think. So whenever we have to do the opposite of what we're comfortable with, there's often a lot of hesitation in that. And so the advice here is to step into it with a softness. Be gentle, be soft, don't force. So if, say, for example, reaching out for you is very challenging and you don't like to bother people, start small. You may not choose to reach out right away about, say, a trauma or a trigger you have, but what you can do is reach out to a friend to go for a walk, right? They're saying find the ways in which you can start to create the path of reaching out in a way that is soft, that is gentle, that is not forceful to yourself. Because although many of us, they're showing me, are on these awakening journeys, whether it's deeply spiritual or not, awakening is simply opening your consciousness to thinking of more than just yourself, more than just this reality. And whether that's a scientific approach of awakening, a medical approach, a societal approach, or a spiritual approach, that's totally fine. It's all awakening. But oftentimes we like to kind of rush the process or force the process or decide a certain speed or pace or think that we need to do it a certain way when yet we actually do not. And so that's the key here, is to approach this with a softness. And they're calling this softness an active surrender. So there's times in which we need to completely surrender into something and just drop all the reins, totally let go. But there's times where we need to actively surrender. And actively surrender is this idea of softness, is we're surrendering in the experience of it, but we're still staying active, but in a gentle way, a non-forceful way. So consider right now where there is a call in your life to actively surrender. Is it a call of actively surrendering your journey inward or your journey outward? Or a third part of that would be, are you needing in this moment to just simply rest? Do you need to actively rest? Meaning, it doesn't mean you're sleeping, but maybe you're reading books, fantasy books, books that are not self-help books, books that are enjoyable to your mind and your body and your frequency, or watching shows, or playing in the garden versus, constantly trying to figure out which plant should be where and this and this and this. You're just playing and you're cleaning up your garden and you're watering your garden. Like, notice the ways in which you can move through that. Okay, now they're coming back for another channeled message, so hold on. Okay. We are grateful to have these opportunities to explain in more detail the ways in which we hope to help you ascend and grow. For many of you, you are in a deeper phase of initiation into this new frequency. All of the clearing of past lives, past histories, past hurts, and past traumas were to bring you to this point of initiation. This is an initiation into the deeper mysteries of consciousness, of embodiment, and essentially the deeper mysteries of being human. So often we see humans degrade the value of being human, always searching for something greater, something bigger. Oftentimes that's expressed in monetary things or material things. Other times it can be expressed in desiring to be a higher spirit or leaving the planet or wishing to be somewhere else. But there is so much value in the human experience. It is absolutely sacred to us. This is why we come through to help bring that support and love. And we are happy to see that humanity is at this point of a beautiful initiation into the deeper mysteries of being human. This initiation is essentially a remembering of what you once knew, what was once swimming in the collective pool of consciousness for humanity, where the understanding of the elemental nature of the world around you was known, where people worked and moved and breathed and lived with the elements, with the earth, with nature, with air, with water, in a much more cohesive way than we do now. Humanity is here to grow and evolve. Humanity is here to remember. Humanity is here to step up and bring back this knowledge that has been on this planet for many years. We wish to bring this message to you to remind you of who you are, but also to initiate you, or rather to welcome you back to what was once known. In this moment, we ask you to feel into your energy. Feel the energy root through your feet into the world around you, not just into Mother Gaia, but into all frequencies. You can picture yourself like a tree with the roots in the ground and the branches up into the air. Notice how that tree has a connection with all things. This too is your connection. In the various ways that you are connected to all things through your aura, through your astral body, through your mental body, through your emotional body and your physical body, you are connected with roots and branches to all things. When you recognize this connection, you become more powerful in what you can manifest in this reality. This is what many of you are initiating into now. So we ask you in this energy to notice what you see and what you hear in the world around you. Not just with people and material things, but rather with nature. How does the earth, how do the trees and plants and animals and elements come alive? Some of you may begin to notice the sounds of nature beyond the birds, but rather the frequencies given off by plants in a garden. You may begin to hear their songs, whereas others of you may begin to notice that your vision changes, that you see more halos, if you will, or auras around things. This is not your eyes, but rather your ability to see beyond what is known. And in this case, you are remembering what you have known. This initiation into fuller consciousness comes through compassion. Compassion for self is the root origin of it. And so with this imagery, Spirit really keeps showing me how much being conscious in our thoughts about self really is like a gateway. Our conscious thoughts about self is the doorway, the gateway to this access to so much more. And if we go back to the idea, they're reminding me how the year 2020 to 2024 was 100 years worth of growth and ascension condensed into a span of 4 years. Now, if we take that and realize how fast we've grown, we can then, even in like a sense of like what's plausible, it would then be plausible to see our realities change fast, right? The way we interact with our reality changes fast. And if we think of how we saw the world in 2020, how we experienced it to how we do now, for many of you, it will be different. Many of you in a very simple way may be noticing that time itself feels faster or is not simply linear. And that is but one example of how this has been shifting and changing. And so if we take more time to observe the world around us, like they're saying, we really will start to see, hear, and feel it in a different way. And in this case, no, you're not going crazy. You're observing in real time the conscious shifts and changes in our reality as we ascend into consciousness. And the more that we observe that and hold space for it being real, the more it goes into that collective well of consciousness of it being allowed to be real. And that's where we really hit that freeway of consciousness moving into 5D. We create, instead of just kind of a rocky dirt road path, we actually create a freeway where many more people can move into 5D with more ease and grace. So, all to say, I hope this message today helps to inspire you all to notice how you're balancing your inner world and your outer world. And notice where in your outer world may you be holding back or holding on too tightly. And the same with your inner world. We're constantly being asked to kind of ebb and flow through recognition of inner and outer world, and never to trigger us in a negative way, but rather give us clues as to what's next. What's the next layer and what's the next layer? Because as we keep unraveling those layers, we come closer to the core of self, where compassion lives and change is completely and utterly available. So in many ways, I mean, for many of you, I'm sure you're nodding in like a, yes, I get this. If we look back again to where you were in your thought and consciousness in 2020 to where you are now is vastly different, is much more open, is much more expressive, maybe more compassionate. Maybe you're healing deeper layers than you ever thought possible. And maybe also you're noticing how much you're thriving now because of what you've been willing to look at and change. This is that balancing of the inner world and the outer world. And this is the balance of duality. And duality is what Earth life is about. Duality. So when we honor it all, we kind of master duality into wholeness. Beautiful. I love it. All right. Well, I will leave that with all of you. That feels very complete to me. So thank you for joining me on this adventure of just allowing Spirit to totally run the show. I hope this message inspires you and helps you feel supported. I hope you feel that energy of the three guides of the light. And I do want to say, if ever you're curious to feel their energy in a more tangible way, stand in the sunlight, because they are literally like that energy of sunlight. So if you stand in the sunlight and you connect with them, like they are an entire dimension of consciousness, you will feel their energy. So I encourage you to do that, to try that if that resonates for you. And yeah, so thank you again, everyone. I hope you have a beautiful week, and I will see you all next week. Have a good one.